Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Kristen Downs. She is the VP of Strategic Account Management and Sales Enablement of TÜV SÜD. Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm excited to have you on the show. Today, we're going to be unpacking your topic, which is leveraging the science of data analytics and combining it with the art of sales. But before we begin, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background and what it is that you guys over at TÜV SÜD are up to these days.
Thanks. Yeah, my background is primarily in information technology sales and enablement. And I've been at TÜV SÜD for just over 1 year. And TÜV SÜD is an interesting company because we enable technology to progress as organizations are moving into this fourth industrial revolution. We inspire trust in a changing world by providing testing, certification, and auditing services to ensure safety and enable clients to take products to market overseas. And I'm really excited to blend my background of sales and technology to enable future companies to move forward with technology.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I'm excited to unpack our topic today. Historically, sales has kind of gone back and forth between an art and a science. How is sales being looked at today that might be different than it was in the past?
It's always about a pendulum swing, right? So way back when, before we had data and all this fantastic analytical power, sales was always looked at as an art form. It's a people business. It's about people, trusting people, and being able to really understand the needs and drive customization to solutions and ensure that there's value received on both ends. And then as computers take precedence and things like Salesforce.com and all these great CRM systems have come into play, all of a sudden data is at everyone's fingertips. And really the science and analytics pieces made the functional area a bit more exciting. But also the pendulum sometimes can swing a bit too far to the other side if people forget about the art form. And it's really the balance of the two is what makes successful salespeople and successful sales organizations, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so, kind of right off the top, firms who marry the art and the science, what's some of the practical ways that maybe you guys at TÜV SÜD or even at your other positions, what's a way that they can just functionally do that with their day-to-day, that art and science, the marrying of the two?
Yeah, there's an algorithm that I've used in the past called sales velocity, and I would encourage people to look that up. Google sales velocity. It's a mathematical equation that pulls different levers of the sales process into how you can scale and speed up revenue, sales generation for that matter. And there are really 4 pieces to it. And if you break it down, it's not overly complex. It's the velocity of sales is a combination of the number of opportunities in your pipeline, the average deal size of your opportunities, your win rate, and then the length of your cycle time. And if you understand what those 4 pieces are, then you can adjust and modify and play with those components to really accelerate your sales output. And the interesting factor is now that there's so much data available that sales managers can actually use this algorithm on an individual level and really understand the dynamics of their team and provide really good coaching and focus for their individual contributors and even their sales managers and sales teams in general to really focus on or hone in on the areas that will maximize their return. It's not just about filling the top of the pipeline anymore. That was always the ultimate goal, right? Pour more in the top so more spits out the bottom. But there's a lot more interesting factors that make as much of a difference.
Absolutely.
I'll give you
Go for it.
I can share with you a story. One of my previous jobs, we had resource constraints. Right? What organization doesn't these days?
Right.
And
sure.
we were just pouring leads in the top of the funnel and not seeing anything but increased activity. There wasn't increased output, increased sales. It was just increased activity. And we found that people were burning out, that we were just struggling to keep up with the demand of the workload. And so we really looked at this sales velocity of the equation for the first time and said, what if we pulled a different lever? So we really, really focused on our win rate. We said, okay, we're going to focus on win rate. So we spent, it seemed like we were going backwards at the time, which was painful in the short term, but we went back and we re-looked at our target market and we said, which are the clients we should really be focused in on and which are the opportunities that we feel we are most likely to win, knowing ourselves and knowing our clients. And we started rejecting jobs. We started saying we would not respond to RFPs. And we really only focused on that business we thought we could win. We saw our win rate increase. Our employee morale went up. Our revenues went up. We all of a sudden had resource capacity that we could apply to other areas that we didn't think we could even tackle because we were so challenged in the past. And it really made a huge difference. Top of the funnel didn't increase, but the out bottom did. And that's ultimately where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. And that's in some ways the dream, right? You don't have to pour in as much at the top and still get, a better output at the bottom. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Another part of the science side of things is the operations and sales operations roles. Talk about kind of the rise of that and how that helps organizations overall.
Sure. Yeah. I'm dating myself, but when I started in sales, there really wasn't a sales operations role. There was a marketing role and a sales role, and sales was responsible for generating all their own leads, really understanding the dynamics of pipeline management, and everyone was doing it themselves, and sales managers were trying to, be with customers as well as, manage the business. And it was all done in Excel spreadsheets. With the rise of a lot of these data analytic tools, we've seen the sales operations role increase. And the value that it really brings is taking that analytic component and looking at the reporting and the measurement factors that make most sense and providing that to the sales teams so that they're not sitting on their desk doing data crunching. And really being able to see the forest through the trees beyond an individual sales team, looking at the organization as a whole and aligning the strategic direction of the business with the sales capabilities and pointing the sales teams in the directions that make the most sense. Really has been interesting to see how prevalent that role has become, and to even take it one step further, how many companies are being started these days totally driven on analytics, CRM systems, and sales measurements. It's a whole industry that didn't really exist, say, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that is incredible, isn't it?
It's wonderful to see so many people understanding that their analytics can apply to sales as well as other areas of the business.
It is exciting stuff. And, part of your role, at TÜV SÜD is sales enablement. How is it that you guys kind of approach this on your team?
So we are taking our CRM system and really focusing our different sales teams on utilizing the same methods and processes within that tool and working with our sales managers to really understand what are the data levers that make most sense for their teams. Because we have such a diverse portfolio of services, we have different sales forces focusing on different target markets with different solution sets. We're all using the same tools, the same systems, and the same processes. But really what we're doing from a sales enablement side is figuring out which of those levers make the most sense for these individual sales teams to produce the outcomes they need to. And therein lies, again, the art of sales. It's not one size fits all. It's how do you customize what you have to address the needs of your audience. And those in truly good at sales understand the science side, but they also don't forget that art side of really being able to listen to the audience, listen to the customer, and being creative in what they bring forward to address those needs. And a good sales operations or sales enablement team does the same thing.
That's amazing. Yeah. So on the art side, some people consider it a born skill. Some of people consider it a skill that's learned. How do you approach looking for the art side of selling and how you build that within to your team at TÜV SÜD?
You know, it's interesting when you're going about hiring a salesperson, a lot of people are all about the numbers, right? Quota attainment, what's black and white on the resume.
Right.
But truly a salesperson, you can't hire a salesperson without actually talking to them. It's the DNA enveloped in that salesperson as to whether or not you understand if they'll resonate with a client or with a customer. And that DNA, is it born or learned? I honestly think it's a bit of both. I think there is a piece within a salesperson that makes them a strong salesperson. Not everyone's born to be that way, but there are definitely areas that you can learn and educate on. And it's like an artist painting a canvas, right? There's a certain skill that comes that you're just born with, but with practice and with dedication, you can always improve. And that's the same with the art of selling. Constant focus on increasing or improving your craft is what makes a great salesperson. And being able to understand the data and the science and making those educated decisions on where to focus your efforts, blending the two, that is really where you get your star performers and your President's Club winners. And it's the combination that I always look for when I hire.
And as far as when you're looking to hire a salesperson, the combination, you've got the art side, you've got the science side. Is there anything practical that you look at, whether it's on a resume or in a conversation, that shows you that they can combine those two skills?
I don't know that there's any one silver bullet. I think sales is still a lot of gut. You really have to get a sense of the person when you're with them. But there is a question that I do ask of all the people I interview. And that question is very simple. It's what makes a great salesperson? What differentiates a great salesperson from an average salesperson? And wait for that person to respond and what they say. And you'd be surprised at some of the answers. A lot of them are canned, and a lot of them you've heard forever. But some people come up with some really creative ones, and those are the people that make you stop and say, that may be an interesting dynamic I would like to put on this team.
That's a great one. Kristen, this has been a great conversation. I love your perspective on leveraging the science of data analytics and combining it with the art of sales. If anybody listening wants to connect with you or has any questions that they'd want to run by you, what's the best way for them to find you?
The best way to connect to me is on LinkedIn, Kristen Downs, TÜV SÜD, and you'll find me. Also, if anyone's interested more about TÜV SÜD and what we bring, we're a global organization, and you can find us at www.tuvsud.com. Thanks.
Perfect. Absolutely, Kristen. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thanks.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.